China who? Sister Makumbu gave Eunice, Hirohito, and me 2 empty milk cartons each to fill with water from the hallway fountain. Today, our class was to take sponges that she and Sister Pat had cut up into different shapes and make printed designs on old t-shirts. We'd use red, black, and green paint, the same colors as the ink Cecile used for her poems and whatever flyers the Panthers asked her to print up. As Sister Makumbu readied the paints, I thought of all those colors, dripping and splattering on Vonetta's and Fern's clothes, and having to scrub them without a washboard. "Don't start anything until I get back with the water," I told Fern. Fern seemed off in a world of her own. Sister Makumbu clapped her hands, pressing me to get going. Fern would be all right for 2 minutes without me. I followed Eunice and Hirohito with a mind to hurry back. I had to admit, I liked being seen as one of the classroom helpers. Vonetta and Janice were put out by the fact that they weren't asked to take a skip down the hall with Hirohito. They'd both raised their hands to ask if they could help too. Although I didn't like Eunice much, we glanced at each other and knew the same thing. Our middle sisters were boy crazy for Hirohito. He was probably 12 or 13 and only saw Vonetta and Janice as pests he could both mess with and keep at a distance. Hirohito beat us to the fountain. As he filled up his cartons, I studied every feature of his face. I wanted to ask him how it felt to have slanted eyes, hair like pine needles, and coppery-colored skin. Which one was he more, Chinese or colored? If I were Vonetta, I would have at least asked him that, as much as she's always in his face. I would have asked him something interesting instead of, "Do you like short girls or tall girls?" I knew my curiosity didn't excuse my staring or wanting to pry. After all, I certainly didn't like questions about not having a mother. So I scolded myself good, while Hirohito filled up his second carton. I should keep my curiosity to myself. I shouldn't stare at his long, black lashes and coppery-colored skin. Besides, I couldn't go from planning to sock him to asking him about being a colored Chinese boy in one good blink. But before I had a chance to look away, he caught me staring at him. "What?" I gave it back. "Did I say something to you?" Thank goodness you can't see cherries in a chocolate bar. I'd have been a red-faced rose if not for my Hershey brown complexion. "Take a picture, it lasts longer." I was not looking at you, boy. Girl pride made me lie hard and strong. Eunice gave me a "where to" glare, but I couldn't let this boy think I was staring at him even if he caught me red-faced beneath my brown skin. I couldn't let this boy with slanted eyes and copper-colored skin think I thought a thing about him. Because I didn't. "And if you try to run me and my sisters off the sidewalk with that skateboard, I'm going to stomp on you good." We were about the same height, but I hadn't met a boy I couldn't throw down to the ground. But then, I was taller than all the boys I knew. "I yelled for you to get out of the way. Can I help it if you're slow?" He was no Ellis Carter, Anthony, Antony, or the other boys who tapped me from behind and ran. He spoke calmly, with no fear of my boy-throwing abilities. "Well, you shouldn't be skateboarding where people walk." "Girl, that's no skateboard," he said, full of what I guessed was boy pride. "That's my go-kart." "Who cares, China boy?" He gave me a look like he was going to drop both cartons and put up his dukes. One eyebrow went up. "China who?" I was glad he said that because my China you shot out right on time. Eunice jumped in and said, "For your information, he's black and Japanese. Can't you tell the difference between a Japanese name and a Chinese name?" I didn't like having my ignorance shoved in me, especially by the likes of Eunice Ainton. But there I was, not knowing a half-Chinese face from a half-Japanese one. I wasn't about to get a better look so I'd know the difference. Looking at that stupid boy got me red-faced in the first place. The last thing I'd do was own up to my ignorance and then apologize. I turned to Eunice as if Hirohito weren't there. "I don't care what he is. He just better watch out when he's riding that skateboard on the sidewalk." Hirohito turned and started walking back to the classroom. "Go-kart." I said, "Forget you, Hirohito." He said, "Forget you, Delphine." Then I said quickly to get the last lick, "Never thought about you." Eunice said, "Is that what y'all say where you come from? That's so corny." For Eunice's information, there was more to that rhyme. Swallow a snake, jump in the lake, come back home with a bellyache. It did sound corny, so I kept it to myself. I don't care. She walked ahead of me. If you knew about Hirohito and Brother Woods, you'd leave him alone. Then I got suckered into a schoolyard comeback I should have seen coming. What about Hirohito and Brother Woods? Wouldn't you know it, Eunice had hips. She made sure I knew that fact as she walked ahead of me. That's for me to know and for you to find out. Expert color counting. Vonetta and Fern figured that since I talked my way inside Cecile's kitchen, I should fight harder for other things, namely to have a television set in the house. It was bad enough knowing our California vacation wasn't much to hang a back-to-school essay on. There was no Disneyland rides to write about. No Hollywood movie stars in the Safeway store to sign autographs. No surfing at the beach or shaking peaches or plums from fruit trees in the backyard. There wasn't even a long-lost mama hugging and crying at the airport. I soon saw my sister's point. The least we could have was a television set. Cartoons on Saturdays, funny shows after dinner, the evening news and true crime shows for me. And of course, the Mike Douglas show 5 days a week, because Mike Douglas always had Negro performers on his variety show. Outside of the flipper incident, we didn't fight over TV, which would mean less noise to bother Cecile. If she bought a portable TV set, we could put it in our room and she wouldn't have to see us for hours. Then it would feel like a real vacation. Watching hours and hours of Get Smart and the FBI without Big Mom making us turn the set off. Once again, I found my calm, steady voice and brought our demands to Cecile at our next sit-down dinner. That's what protesters did. They brought their protest songs and their demands to the establishment because the establishment was in control. The establishment was someone over 30 years old who had the power. I didn't know Cecile's exact age, but she had to be over 30. That, plus her holding on to the money pod given us, had made Cecile the establishment. All we needed were some protest signs and an or else that wouldn't make Cecile mad enough to hurt us. Without an or else, protesters are just people with protest songs and demands who don't stand a chance of getting anything. The only thing Cecile seemed to care about were her poems and her peace and quiet. The only thing we seemed to care about was our television set. Armed with that, I brought up our sole demand and stood ready with our reasons, as if my Safeway S were pressed to my chest. She said, "No one needs a television set." "We do," I said. "To catch our shows," Vonetta said. "Yeah," Fern said, "to catch our cartoons." "And the evening news," I threw in. You could practically see the whole world in the evening news. "And Mike Douglas." "That's right, we want Mike Douglas." How else would we see Motown groups, James Brown, or Aretha Franklin? The Mike Douglas show wasn't the only place to find colored people on television. Each week, Jet Magazine pointed out all the shows with colored people. My sisters and I became expert colored counters. We had it down to a science. Not only did we count how many colored people were on TV, we also counted the number of words the actors were given to say. For instance, it was easy to count the number of words the Negro engineer on Mission Impossible spoke, as well as the black POW on Hogan's Heroes. Sometimes the black POW didn't have any words to say, so we scored him a 1 for being there. We counted how many times Lieutenant Uhura hailed the frequency on Star Trek. We'd even take turns being her, although Big Ma would have never let us wear a mini dress or space boots. But then there was I Spy. All 3 of us together couldn't count every word Bill Cosby said. And then there was a new show, Julia, coming in September, starring Diane Carroll. We agreed to shout out, "Black Infinity!" when Julia came on because each episode would be all about her character. We didn't just count the shows. We counted the commercials as well. We'd run into the TV room in time to catch the commercials with colored people using deodorant, shaving cream, and wash powder. There was a little colored girl on our favorite commercial who looked just like Fern. In fact, I said that little girl could have been Fern, which made Vonetta jealous. In the commercial, the little girl took a bite of butter bread and said, "Gee, Ma, this is the best butter I ever ate." Then we'd say it the way she did, in her dead, expressionless voice, and we'd outdo ourselves trying to say it with the right amount of deadness. We figured that was how the commercial people told her to say it. Not too colored. Then we get silly and say it every kind of colored way we knew how. We gave Cecile all of our reasons why she should have a television set in her green stucco house. We even showed her how it would give her peace of mind to do her work without us bothering her. To our reasons, the establishment said, "Television is a liar and a story." But we weren't ready to give up. "The evening news comes on television," I said. "That's all true because it's on the news." She grunted. "And the weatherman gives the weather report. That's important." Another grunt. "And the monkeys do the monkey." Then Fern swung her arms up and down and bobbed her head like a go-go dancer. Cecile made a what expression. Flummox. Good old Fern. Fern had managed to completely flummox the establishment. And then we started singing our protest song, chewing away at her peace and quiet. "Here we come, walking down the street," like Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, and the other singing monkeys. The next day, when we came back from the center, we found a radio in our room, the cord wrapped around its plastic body. It was a show-nuff left by the garbage dump second-hand radio. Vonetta and Fern squealed as if the little colored girl in the commercial were standing in our room, eating buttered bread. Civic pride.